Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking storms across the Central Plains for tomorrow and Friday. So we have several days in a row where we're expecting some wet weather across the U.S., increasing our hail risk, our wind risk, but also our flooding risk. So we'll talk about that over the next few minutes. Let's go ahead and take a look at your weather headlines today. We do have that hail risk on the horizon. From hail to hurricanes, that's what we're talking about today. Thursday and Friday, we're watching for large hail and strong winds across places like New Mexico, Texas, and Kansas. Then as we head into the weekend, we're going to talk about flooding risks because we're going to have round after round after round of storms that's going to lead to flash flooding across places like Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, and even places down to the south like Louisiana. Now from hail to hurricanes, as I mentioned, we're going to go out to the Atlantic now where Melissa, tropical storm right now, but expected to be a major hurricane as we head into the end of this weekend and early next week. So let's go ahead and get started on that forecast. But first, I want to remind you guys, go to HailTrace.com/OU-tickets to take a look at how you can enter into the OU versus Ole Miss ticket giveaway. You get 2 tickets with this to the OU game at 11 a.m. on Saturday. Maybe a wet one, gotta be honest there, it may be a wet one. But you also get a parking pass, so hopefully you get to park close enough that you don't get too wet, and you get access to the Champions tailgate, which means free food, and I think that the drinks, sodas and pops are included in that as well. Moving on to yesterday's storm reports, it was quiet to start out. We had that low pressure system that was spinning up in the Midwest, and then we all of a sudden got lots of hail across the western side of Michigan. Honestly, to be honest here, not where we expected to get hail. We expected that hail risk to be closer to Detroit and then down into Ohio. However, storms did surprise us yesterday. We also got hail reports across the eastern side of Tennessee, and then we also got hail reports a little bit farther up to the north later on in the evening hours through places like Morgantown and Elkins. So you can see that severe thunderstorm warning right there, highlighted there in yellow. That was a common sight across the Midwest and portions of the eastern side of the U.S. yesterday. Not going to lie to you here, models haven't been doing the best job with forecasting storms like this. Today, we could see more storms out in the Four Corners. Some of those could be pop-up severe thunderstorms. We could see a little bit of hail, maybe some high wind with this as well. As we head into the next few days, we're going to see an increased risk in places like West Texas and even into Oklahoma. And then on Friday, West Texas is going to be the central focus for severe weather. Let's move through what we're seeing right now. We are still watching that low pressure system. You can see the spin out in places like Toronto. It's bringing a soaking to our New England states this morning, but I think that they're going to dry off over the next 12 hours. Dry down in the southeast for Florida, and then we've already got some showers and storms starting in the Four Corners at the moment. Hey, we're going to talk about later on the atmospheric river that's going to bring more storms to this area of the country in the northwest. But first, I want to get to those temperatures, which feel very fall-like in the morning. It's that type of weather that you have to run your heater in the car in the morning and then the AC in the afternoon. And then you get in the car in the afternoon and you're like, oh, it's hot in here, turn on that AC. Let's talk about your hail risk today. So we're going into severe weather mode now. We're talking about a hail risk not only today, but also on Thursday and increasing by Friday. Friday storms look pretty interesting to me. Let's go ahead and zoom down to the Four Corners today, where while it's a very low risk for hail, I do think that we could see some pop-up hailstorms here. So we're watching for 2 areas, one just along the Arizona and New Mexico state line, the other a little bit farther to the north along the Colorado and New Mexico state line. So again, the Four Corners right in this area is where we're watching for those pop-up hailstorms today. Tomorrow, we shift out into New Mexico, western Texas, and even the southwestern central portion of Oklahoma. Now let me tell you, this is going to be a late night system. We're watching storms to fire in the afternoon and evening hours, continuing through the overnight hours, so you could be asleep at this time that we're watching for these storms. Let's take a look at the hail risk here, because we've identified 2 areas for large hail. When you see the oranges, that means that we could have some larger hail up to the size of a golf ball at least. Let's go ahead and look at your significant hail model. Do you see these areas? 1 down in southwestern central Oklahoma, another down in west Texas, including Lubbock, Texas. So let's go ahead and look at the HailTrace hail map. All right, this is today. No significant hail today. No significant wind today. Pocket change is what we call this here, down in the Four Corners today. Let's move on. All right, let's talk about tomorrow. Here we go. Okay, national view for tomorrow. What you're going to see is a line of storms starting in places like Amarillo, but things really start to get interesting as we head into the late night tomorrow. After that, we're going to see mainly West Texas, but even southwestern Oklahoma really fire up. Let's see this one more time, and let's zoom down into West Texas and Oklahoma. Again, storms really get going later on in the evening, so you have late Thursday evening plans. Make sure that you have an indoor option. You're checking the weather right around dinner time, good for you. That's whenever storms are firing. As we head into the overnight hours, so it's dark by this point, look what pops up in western Oklahoma. Near places like El Reno, Hinton, Clinton, all of these areas could see some isolated supercells. Now, it's going to be isolated. Not everyone getting hail in western Oklahoma. Pretty isolated here. We'll have to see where exactly these storms form, because a few models want to bring storms as far north up I-35 into places like Guthrie, maybe even Stillwater. So we'll have to look at it tomorrow. I told you earlier in the forecast that these models, they're not handling this setup very well. So we'll continue to watch this. It's going to turn into more of a widespread event as we head into the overnight hours on Thursday and into early Friday morning. So as you head out the door in places like Dallas and Tulsa by Friday morning, your morning commute, it could be a wet one. You could see that lightning and hear the rumbles of thunder on early Friday morning. Could these storms go severe on Friday morning? I think it's possible. I think it's a lower risk by Friday morning during your commute than it is on late Thursday night, overnight hours Thursday into Friday. Which brings me to your risk on Thursday. So we're going to break this up into 2 parts. We're talking about that wind risk and the hail risk here. Wind highlighted here in blue for 60, maybe up to 75 mile per hour wind speeds. I think that we'll probably see 60 to 65. I'm not too terribly worried about the wind, but we could get up to 70 in some places. Hail. I told you I highlighted 2 places for hail with these showers and storms across Texas and Oklahoma. And then we've got another area across places like northern side of New Mexico and southern side of Colorado. So let's zoom down into each individual place. We could see some larger hail. I'd say maybe up to $half size, ping pong ball size hail in New Mexico. And here's what everyone has been watching for today. Where are we expecting hail on Thursday evening? 2 areas. Remember, I highlighted Lubbock, Texas earlier for up to golf ball size hail. And then remember those isolated storms in places like El Reno, Yukon, Hinton, Clinton, these areas right along the highway here, up 35 as far north as Guthrie, through Oklahoma City, and then all the way down in southwestern Oklahoma. Those isolated storms could pop up in anywhere in here, and they could produce those larger hailstones. We're saying golf ball right now, but I could see a world where we update that, where we upgrade it to larger hail tomorrow, but we'll have to see what models are doing. Moving on to your max forecasted hail size for Thursday. Again, I have already given this away. I've spoiled it for you guys. Golf ball size hail. All right, so we talked about Wednesday, talked about the Four Corners. Talking about Thursday as well, we've highlighted that wind and that hail risk. Let's go ahead and talk about Friday, which really targets West Texas, anywhere from Lubbock to San Angelo, and those Dallas storms early on Friday morning. So we've got another round of storms that's going to come through the late night hours. Thursday night into Friday, Friday night into Saturday. You can see anywhere from San Angelo to Dallas, these storms will line up late on Friday, and look at this, we're at midnight already on early Saturday morning. Those storms will continue, but after the storms, after the severe weather risk stops, we still have a flooding risk to talk about. So we have a flooding risk anywhere from Kansas City to Dallas, including Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And then by Saturday, that flood risk moves down to the south. So I don't want you to get hung up on just the hail risk and forget about the flooding risk that comes along with it. Hey, speaking about all of this moisture that we've got in the air here, we also have a lot of moisture along the west coast from an atmospheric river that's setting up. Now here to help us explain what an atmospheric river is, we've got our newest meteorologist, Michaela Smith. Michaela's going to come in and explain that atmospheric river. All right, Michaela, now we are talking about all of this moisture that's headed out on the west coast right now. It's going to be really a problem later on this week. Can you tell us what we're expecting here? I'm actually going to pass the clicker over to you so you can explain what an atmospheric river is and how it can impact people.
Yeah, it's going to cause, a lot of rainfall to move in, so that's something that we're going to watch closely. I think this is what we're going to next. Could be wrong here. I think actually you're going back into Friday first.
Are we? And then we're going.
We're jumping the gun a little bit. I think we're going into the after. So.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Friday in a minute, and I'm going to switch ahead right here.
Jump right in. Let's do it. So yeah, we're talking about atmospheric rivers. You've probably seen maybe some headlines now about atmospheric rivers, and you didn't really know what was talking about. You think of a river, you're like, okay, I see those typically when you're out and about. That's the creeks you walk by, it flows into the rivers and eventually the ocean. So flood outlook, you can see for today, not really concerned about anything across the area too much. Then as we head into tomorrow, still not overly concerned. As we get to Friday, which again, this is what Taylor's going to talk about a little bit more here shortly, is you can see one of the other concerns for Friday is also just how much rain we're getting Thursday night into Friday, then into Saturday. So that's why we have this level 2 risk you can see. So scattered flash flooding will be a possibility. Just always have to remind yourself, turn around, don't drown. That's going to be something, again, that we're watching for very closely. Friday. Saturday, there'll be another area. It's still going to include far southwest, eastern parts of Oklahoma and really a lot of eastern Texas. And then you can see even down to areas in parts of Louisiana, maybe parts of Houston too could see some of that moisture moving in. So that's going to be part of the risk Saturday. But the other part of the risk Saturday is going to be up in the Pacific Northwest. So this is a level 1 risk, not a level 2. I wouldn't be shocked though if this does get upgraded a little bit higher, just because again, we're watching for a lot of moisture to start to move in once we go Friday and then especially into Saturday. So talking about an atmospheric river, well, it is very similar to the actual rivers that you see when you're out and about. But the difference is an atmospheric river is kind of this large area in the atmosphere that's narrow, that has a lot of moisture that's available. So it's pulling that moisture out of the ocean. Sometimes it's pulling it even from the tropics, where we talk about, our tropical storms and our hurricanes, and it's bringing it to different areas across the country. But it is very similar again to a river, that it is just this moisture that's moving in, but it's up in the sky, hence it being an atmospheric river. So how does this kind of translate into a flooding risk that we're talking about? Well, when that moisture starts to move into land, it starts to kind of interact with these land masses. A lot of the times it's being shoved up areas like mountains. Again, the Pacific Northwest, a lot of mountains up there. So you can see that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with. As that moisture starts to move onto the land, mountains typically force it upwards. Once it gets that upward motion, you start to see some of these storms that will develop and just rain in general. So the moisture starts to cool, it will condense, and that at that point produces rain and even snow if it gets cold enough. So in higher elevations in the mountains especially, that's when you start to see more of those snowstorms. So it can really produce some deep snowfall. Flooding becomes a possibility, mudslides, and that can be really dangerous as well, because if you have areas that maybe haven't seen a ton of rainfall and now all of a sudden you're introducing a lot of rain at once, that topsoil is going to be very loose, so that can really cause those mudslides. So that's something we're also going to have to watch as we go throughout the rest of this kind of weekend, Friday into Saturday as well. I want to show you the satellite view too. So this is kind of a wide view across the US right now, but as you look more towards the northwest, you can see where those clouds are a little bit of a deeper white color. That's going to be actually moisture that we're tracking. So as we jump again more towards the Pacific Northwest, you can see this moisture just starting to stream in from that atmospheric river. So again, where it's those thin bands that you see just kind of coming along shore, that's what we're going to be watching as we go. Today, Thursday, especially Friday and Saturday, you can see a little bit more off towards the west. That's kind of that main event, so it's not here just yet. That's when some of that heavier moisture will actually start to move in. So as you look at these future rainfall totals, not a ton until we get to your Thursday, but then that's when we focus more, again, that's the beginning of when that rain will start in parts of Canada, so Vancouver, Seattle, Portland. As you go more into Friday night to Saturday, especially areas up in the mountains, even if you're seeing that like 4 to 5 inch range, that's a lot of water to fall that's at higher elevations that has to work its way downhill eventually, which is why kind of landslides become more of a thing that we have to watch. But also, like we talked about earlier, rainfall is going to really become a factor here in Oklahoma as well, especially look at Oklahoma City. You're getting some of these totals up and now that 5, maybe 6 inch rain. So that's why flooding is also going to be a concern as we head into Friday and Saturday, along with some of those severe weather chances. I'm going to let Taylor kind of take back over some things and give you more of a breakdown for Friday's severe weather, because we've talked about Thursday a lot, you know, but we'll still have the hail potential. Yeah, going back in time a little bit, but Friday is also really important, not only with the flooding, but also, again, with the severe weather.
Up to 5 to 6 inches of rain.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of rain.
For people that don't know right now too, we're kind of seeing like more flash drought conditions just because things have been very dry recently.
Yeah.
We had a pretty wet, especially here in Oklahoma, at least like summer. So we weren't dealing with the drought maybe as much. Now we are. A lot of Texas is dealing with the drought too. So where a lot of this moisture is, that's why flash flooding is going to be something that's a little more concerning.
It's much needed, but oftentimes it's too much of a good thing. So if we get too much rain too fast, that dry ground that you probably see outside of in your front lawn, that is going to have a very difficult time absorbing all of that rain, and then that could increase the flash flooding risk in your area. So something to keep an eye on. Michaela, we appreciate you being here and helping us out today.
Absolutely.
We're going to go back to Friday's forecast now. So let's go ahead and go back, because I did jump the gun a little bit here. For just a recap of what we talked about all of that rain. Of course, you can see it on the map right here. Coming in starting late on Thursday. So I'm not worried about a flash flood risk on Thursday. I'm more worried about that late Thursday night, Friday morning, through the day on Friday. Look at all that rain that's coming down during your morning commute on Friday morning, continuing as we head through the day on Friday, overnight Friday night as we get those severe storms out in West Texas, and into the rest of the day on Saturday. For all of those who are watching here in Oklahoma, yes, the game on Saturday will most likely be a wet one. We're expecting about 3/10, if not about a half of an inch of rain just during the game on Saturday. So I know a lot of you are also going to, well, Norman floods. Norman does flood pretty easily, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, we're officially heading into Friday now. Let's talk about the severe risk on Friday. I think that this is going to be a very interesting setup. What we're watching for on Friday is going to be a line of storms that stretches anywhere from Lawton all the way down into places like Fort Stockton. Down to the south, it's going to be more of a wind risk, but right in the middle of this line of storms right here is going to increase the hail risk, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that hail forecast right there. From Sweetwater to Midland to Fort Stockton, we are expecting that increased hail risk right there, and I would really highlight this area right here, Fort Stockton to Midland. That would be where I would watch for larger hail. If I were to pick a day, and I know no one asked me to, but I will, between Thursday and Friday for larger hail, I would say probably Friday. I'm really looking at this area right here. We're still several days away from this, so things could change, but we'll have an eye on that as we get closer to the end of the week. Moving on now, we're going to talk about that flood risk one more time, but then we're going to move on and we're going to break down the rainfall totals right in this area. So if you guys are watching for rain in this area, ask your questions in the comments. I want to see where you guys are watching from today, and we can try to tailor this forecast, whether it be severe weather or just timing of rain, to your area. Golf ball size hail, that's the largest that I went with on Friday, but we'll probably increase that as we get more information with those storms on Friday into Saturday morning. This is like the 4th time we've showed this timeline here, so I hope that you have a good grasp of what's happening. Alrighty, moving on now. I'm going to go ahead and do one recap. Thursday, we've got New Mexico, West Texas, and Oklahoma and the storm risk. Friday, West Texas. Let's break down the rainfall in this area. So we're talking about all of this rain over the next 5 days. Michaela broke down that rainfall risk out to the west. We've got two areas, the atmospheric river out to the west, and then a plume of moisture coming up into places like Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. Day by day here, you can see which days are really going to be the flooding risk, Friday and Saturday. One more time, Friday and Saturday. You guys know the drill here. Turn around, don't drown. We talked about that flash flood risk. We talked about why that's so important over the next few days, specifically given the last few weeks and how dry they are. Let's move out to the Atlantic now. We do have Tropical Storm Melissa, a tropical storm right now, but I like what we did with the headlines today. Michaela said it earlier, Melissa to go major. So we're not expecting this to stay a tropical storm for long. We are expecting Melissa to intensify to a Category 3 hurricane. Right now, taking that northwestward track here, still hanging out in the Caribbean, but this slow movement is going to give Melissa plenty of time to organize and really start to strengthen. We're watching for Haiti and Jamaica right now. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, models are disagreeing on what exactly is going to happen. Some models have this storm heading up to the west into the Gulf. Some models have this going right up to the north. This is the National Hurricane Center's prediction. So what they have is they have this movement straight north by Friday, staying a tropical storm, increasing to a Category 1 hurricane on Saturday as it takes a turn to the west, increasing to a Category 2 storm, hurricane, on Sunday, and then we get to Cat 3 by Monday with 120 mile per hour winds just off the coast of Jamaica. So at the very least, we're going to have very, very windy days in Jamaica, maybe even getting a little too close for comfort in the Jamaica area as that Cat 3 storm stays very, very close to the coast there. So we'll keep an eye on Melissa, but I do want to reiterate that we don't know everything quite yet. We're looking pretty far into the future right now. So just to give you an idea of how confused models are at the moment, we've got one model, the GFS, going closer to Haiti. We've got several models taking this path that the National Hurricane Center did, closer to Jamaica. And then we've got other models that are trying to send this thing closer to the Gulf. So models, again, they're just not agreeing on what exactly is going to happen here. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on this. As we have mentioned many, many times in this forecast, during our noon forecasts, we still have plenty of time for hurricane season left. This last week to the first week of November, we could still see multiple tropical storms, hurricanes. We did it last year. We could do it again this year. Take a look at what we saw last year. At this time last year, we were just finishing up with Milton, moving on to Nadine, and Oscar was shortly in front of, just shortly after Nadine. So we had several storms all the way into early November last year. Bringing you back on land, and Joey, have I missed any questions here? Joey's helping us produce today. I don't see any questions here, but I do see a few people popping on. Chipper says, hello, HailTrace team. We appreciate you popping on here. And we see another question about the app, and we'll make sure that we get information to you about the app as well. Let's take a look at those temperatures. It's slowly warming up out there. My long sleeves felt a little silly today because I knew it was going to be in the upper 70s this afternoon here in Oklahoma City. I know a lot of people are ready to bring out those turtlenecks and leave the tank tops in the past, but unfortunately it does look like warmer weather will be moving back in as we head into the end of October. Let's go ahead and take a look at the later portion of this month, October 27th through the 31st, including Halloween in this map here. It looks like temperatures still have a high likelihood to stay warmer than average. So we're talking about if your average is 75 for this time of the year, you could be in the 80s. Most likely no record-breaking daily high temperatures, but still warm, or warmer than normal nonetheless. We also have several rounds of rain moving into the central and eastern portion of the U.S. as we head into the end of this month. So expect more forecasts very similar to what you saw today, with that active severe weather and also several things happening across the U.S. We'll break it down for you with multiple people. We saw meteorologist Michaela Smith. She'll be in most of our forecasts going forward. We've got myself, we've got multiple meteorologists like Joey working behind the scenes as well, so you'll see a lot from us over the next few weeks. Hey, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We post all the time on those platforms about current weather. And give us a call, give us a call. If you are interested in a wind, hail, or tornado map, 855-334-4245, or email us at info@hailtrace.com. Head over to our website, hailtrace.com, for more information. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll see you back here